Step into the Oracle Parlor, a podcast where those interested in witchcraft, psychic abilities, ghosts, and all things paranormal come to sip and spill the magical tea. This parlor is a space to grow by maintaining our curiosity over fear when it comes to the spooky and the paranormal. I'm your host, Jenny, otherwise known as Phantasma Witch. I'm a previous visual storytelling artist from animation, now full-time psychic witch, who is getting her MA in psychology to become a licensed therapist. Every other episode, I will share my paranormal experiences, different witchy experiences on a variety of topics, while other episodes, I will be talking with witchy guests of all backgrounds, from writers to artists to well-known social media witches, so we can learn about their practices and how they grew into their personal power. So get cozy and grab your tea. It's time to get mystical. Hello, my mystical, magical friends. I am so excited to talk to you today, like I am all the time. But today we're going to be talking about something that I feel like comes up quite a lot, and I feel like tends to be a major concern for a lot of people, especially new folks who are dabbling in witchy and psychic realms. And that is the shocked Home Alone face. Am I cursed? Have I been cursed? So let's get into it. Before I begin, as always, this is a topic that I'm going to be discussing specifically from my point of view, which includes my lived experiences, my thoughts, opinions, and beliefs. Which means that you do not have to agree with me, and that is totally fine. We are allowed to have our own separate opinions and beliefs about these things. So please feel free to take what works and leave the rest. And if none of it works, that is also fine too. The other thing that I like to mention is, um, in regards to this, I share these things to hopefully help you use a little discernment and be a little more mindful and aware without holding fear. And if you've listened to my previous episodes, you know that I'm really big on discernment, and that is a key aspect to the topic that we're going to be talking about today. So please use your discernment. Please don't let anything that I share today scare you. Please know that you always have the power to take control of these magical and cyclic things. And if you feel like it's out of your control, there are always people that you can reach out to for help. So, why am I bringing up the idea of have I been cursed? Well, like all my episodes, I feel like I was inspired by a TikTok video. So I I will share with you all the TikTok video, and then I'll kind of break down the ideas of curses, cursing, and my personal experiences with it. So, first, this TikTok video that I saw. It was somebody who was recording themselves with a block of text, and the block of text said that this person had gone to a psychic and asked the psychic if they were cursed because they had these weird sensations and feelings in their body. And the psychic responded, "Have you gone to see a doctor?" And the video recording was them sitting in a doctor's office or a hospital room. And they said that they went to the doctors, and it turns out that they are anemic or something like that. I forget exactly what it was. And so this person was kind of using this experience with the psychic as a, oh my God, the psychic was right. The psychic knew it was a health problem. So first of all, before I get into the aspect of the curse that they were talking about, a good ethical psychic just like a good ethical therapist, will tell you, should tell you, if you come to them mentioning a lot of physical ailments, they should ask you first, have you talked to a doctor? That should always be the first question that an ethical psychic asks if you come to them asking, has somebody sent me the evil eye? Has somebody sent a curse upon me because I'm feeling these weird physical sensations? First question, have you seen a doctor? Because if a doctor cannot explain it and you've gone to multiple doctors and you've done multiple tests, then okay, maybe we can explore something outside the realm of medical. But this person openly admitted in their comments, because I went to go read the comments for more context, they openly admitted that when they were having all these weird physical sensations and feelings in their body, the first person they turned to was not a doctor, it was a psychic. Big red flag. Oh no, this makes me sad, especially as someone who is invisibly dynamically disabled, who has chronic health issues. This is why I'm like, discernment is so important when it comes to anything like psychic or magical. We always want to check mundane reasons before we jump to spiritual, psychic, magical reasoning. Always investigate the mundane first and foremost. And this is an excellent example of this. So again, this person was kind of using this as an excuse that the psychic was right, but it was like, no, the psychic was being ethical, and you should have talked to your doctor first. You should have investigated the mundane reasons beforehand. So let that be a gentle reminder to you, dear listener, that you always want to check the mundane first. If you've ever seen Ghost Hunters, and I'm so sure that my audience, I feel like we vibe, you and me, we vibe. So I feel like we watched a lot of the same shows growing up when we were younger, no matter what age you were when it came out. But I used to watch a lot of Ghost Hunters, and this is actually something I learned from watching Ghost Hunters as a kid. For those of you who don't know, Ghost Hunters follows a couple of daytime plumbers who are nighttime paranormal investigators. And so, a big thing for the show when it was coming out was that the two guys that kind of ran what they called TAPS, their group of paranormal investigators, their whole thing was whenever they talked to a client about things that they were having happen in their home, they were always interested in investigating the mundane reasons first, especially as plumbers, because they have had so many experiences where somebody talks about tapping in the walls and shaking of the bed, and then they find out it's a leaky pipe or a pipe that's vibrating under the bed. I believe, I could be wrong, so like, don't take my word on this, but I could believe they were also one of the first people that kind of popularized the idea that EMF, electromagnetic field, if you have like an open socket or you have an electrical thing in your room that's kind of like exposed, or even within a wall, if it gives off strong EMF readings, it could create different things, blah, blah, blah. They were kind of the people who also talked about that as well. And so, you know, in Ghost Hunters, they really make it a point to their audience to try to be like, there could always be a mundane reason. So we never want to completely rule out that fact. We always want to check those things first. Keep those things on a list over here on the side. So when you're doing your investigation into the psychic, the paranormal, and the magical world, you can then compare and contrast your list of what is mundane and what is not. And is there anything that cancels out? Like, oh, the banging in the wall, and then we find out that it's a pipe problem. Okay, cool. So we can cross off the list a ghost banging on a wall, especially if it's the same exact wall all the time. Then we know for a fact, okay. So this is one of those things where we should be asking these questions. We should be investigating when we are working within this realm of the paranormal, supernatural. We always want to be checking in with the grounded and mundane. I could keep saying it over and over again, but it is really, really, really important. Now that I've said that, does that mean that no one ever gets cursed? No. Can somebody get cursed? Yes. And this is where I want to remind you, please don't get scared. Take a breath, ground down. Just because it can happen doesn't mean it will, because curses are highly, 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 highly unlikely, my friend. It's very rare. It is extremely rare. So let me break it down for you. And if you've ever taken my class on shields and wards and psychic protection, you've heard this spiel before. And if you're interested, that class is available on my website currently. Although I do need to update it, and I want to do another live version of that class so I can actually interact with everybody and we can do like a Q&A. So anyways, essentially, there are different levels to malefic styles of working. When someone does malefic, magic, or psychic attack to another person, at another person, there's tiers, there's different levels, and those tiers and those levels have names. Again, this is my personal belief, what I understand of it. So we have, kind of the most intense, which is curses. We then have hexes, then we have jinxes, and then we have kind of like the day-to-day um like evil eye stuff, and then we have the bacteria. So let me break this down a little bit. So the bacteria that I'm talking about, this is very, very, very unintentional. Bacteria, you can think of it like literal bacteria. That's why I'm calling it that. So, spiritual bacteria, let's call it spiritual bacteria or ener I don't like using spiritual, right? Like in this context, we can say energetic bacteria. Look, I'm sorting it out as I go, okay? Energetic bacteria. So, energetic bacteria is things that are completely unintentional that we pick up just like bacteria when you touch a door handle, a public bathroom door handle. Ew, gross, right? You immediately wash your hands afterwards, right? You should, with soap and warm water, hopefully. It's the same thing when you go out during your day. If you are someone, even if you're not like highly sensitive, if it's just out there, you're gonna pick it up. But you'll especially feel it if you're someone who is sensitive to energies and spirits and things of that nature. But if you go out and you do your day, you run your errands, you go out and about, you're picking up on other psychic stuff. You're a little bit of a sponge. And depending on how porous of a sponge you are, depends on how much you're absorbing. Now, I am a very porous sponge. So I have to cleanse and maintain my shields pretty consistently. But that's what the bacteria is. This could also be, when I say energetic bacteria, this could be stagnant energy. This could be people projecting energy out and about. This could even be spirits and entities that are like really low level, like bacteria, parasitic entities, which I have an episode of the podcast on. If you haven't listened, definitely check it out. So that's kind of the lowest tier is like you're gonna have this happen no matter what. It is a natural part of life. It is just what it is. This is why we cleanse and we protect. Then the next step up from that is kind of like what I was saying with like the day-to-day, unintentional or intentional. So this is where we start to get into it could be intentional, it could be unintentional, and that is where we typically will see like the evil eye will be in this level. Um, Negative energy that's directed at you can be on this level. And again, somebody can be consciously doing it or unconsciously. So I'll give you an example. Let's use unconscious first. So let's say you go to a cafe and there's a line and you get in line and you didn't realize that there was somebody waiting in line and you accidentally cut in front of them. And this person is too anxious to say anything, but ooh, they are mad about it. They are fuming. They are staring daggers in the back of your head, but you wouldn't know because they're not going to tell you. And how are you supposed to know? You just weren't aware. And that happens. It was an accident. And this person doesn't take it as an accident and they get really mad about it. Sometimes people will unintentionally project negativity towards you. It can happen. This is how the evil eye happens. It can be unintentional. Somebody envies you, somebody is jealous of you, somebody wants what you have. And therefore, that's how the evil eye connection gets made. It can happen. Does this mean that you're cursed? No. Does it mean that maybe when you go to pick up your drink, when your order is ready, it's really sticky on the outside and it kind of ruins your day because then your hand is sticky and you can't wash your hands and then it gets on your clothes? Yeah, that could be because of that. Could it be that maybe you go to pick up your drink and the lid wasn't on properly, so as soon as you get in the car, it spills? Yeah, it could be a part of that. That doesn't mean that every single time this happens, something bad is going to happen, but there is a possibility that this can happen, right? The next tier up above that is jinxes. Jinxes are where Oh, you know what? I just realized I didn't give an intentional example. So an intentional example of the day to day, my bad. The intentional example of the day to day would be if you cut somebody off in traffic and the person you cut off says, I hope you get a ticket. I hope you get a flat tire. I hope you have a terrible day. They're intentionally like, ooh, I want this person to have a bad day because they're a jerk that cut me off in traffic and they flipped me the bird. Even, let's say this happened in this scenario. That could be an intentional, somebody's projecting that negative energy at you very intentionally, hoping that something negative happens because of something you did. If you notice a pattern here, a lot of the intentional stuff, usually there is a cause and effect. So, next, jinxes. Jinxes are a step up because it is intentional psychic or magical working. The ones that we just looked at, the kind of like day-to-day stuff, it's not like someone is actively like thinking a spell in your direction, but words and thoughts are spells, even if people don't believe in it. Cursing, curse words. Why do you think they're called curse words and cursing, right? The idea is that those day-to-day ones, it's not like somebody's actively thinking that they're going to send you the evil eye or a psychic attack or are doing spells at you. Whereas a jinx, that is when we move into the territory of the other person is very intentionally trying to send you a psychic attack, very intentionally doing some kind of magical working towards another person. Jinxes, though, are very consider considerably and comparatively, they're very low level and not like really, really, really dangerous. Jinxes are like if you think of a jinx, you may think of um like tripping, like you're walking down the street and you trip, and then you go to catch yourself from tripping and then you step into some gum and then you're trying to scrape the gum off in the grass and you step in dog poop. Like it's just like, what is this bad luck? That just keeps happening. And it's just a chain of bad luck after bad luck after bad. That could be a jinx. They're small, they are not extremely disruptive, but they can be really, really, really frustrating and really annoying and just cause a buildup of like chaos in your day to the point that you just get really overwhelmed and really annoyed and just sick and fed up. That's a jinx. That's when someone's intentionally hoping and sending you something with the intent that you have these like incidences that kind of build up. And then we move on to hexes. Hexes are a little more intense than jinxes. Hexes have a little more oomph to them. They're a bit more long lasting. The side effects are a bit more intense. Um, these can get um, pretty difficult. We typically, when it comes to hexes, it really depends on like what the intention is. But let me try to think of an example of a hex. So if somebody were to hex somebody, okay, here's an example. Let's say somebody is really mad at somebody else and they hex them in a way that their bank account is constantly running low and they can't get a job. That's a hex because that will definitely mess someone's life up a bit and it will be pretty intense. That is borderline curse. I'm going to be honest. That's getting pretty intense. So I'm trying to think of another example, but essentially like hexing somebody so maybe they get jury duty, hexing somebody so maybe they get a parking ticket or but it's consistent. It's consistent always in the background, which is hexes can be frustrating in that way. They will eventually wear off, but it's not super long lasting, but it's more than like a jinx, where a jinx you may have a couple days where it's like really frustrating. A hex could last a bit longer than that because whatever is happening to you has a longer lasting effect. You know, it's not the same as stepping in dog crap on the street. A hex is more like I was saying, like let's say you get that parking ticket and then you get another parking ticket or like you keep having them stack and so it's frustrating because then you have to go to court and then you have to fight the ticket because maybe something wasn't done incorrectly but then they won't listen to you and yada 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 it just keeps going so you see how it's got more of like a domino effect rather than the jinx stepping in gum or something where it's like it's a frustration in the moment where you have to go home and you have to clean it and it sucks but once you've done it it's done and it's over. This just keeps going a little bit. And now finally we get to curses. So curses are a bit more intense. Curses are quite harmful, quite damaging, and can last a very long time. Curses can keep going. Curses are not fun. They're very serious. They are very rare. So again, I'm not saying any of this to scare you. Because I want to make it very clear. Curses are extremely, extremely, extremely rare. I'm going to talk about why that is. So, curses are the highest tier, but they're also the rarest tier because in order for someone to do a curse, they have to know what they are doing, or they have to know someone who knows what they are doing. And they have to be really, 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 really intentional with it and really, really, really angry with it. Because if somebody is going to go and hire somebody to do a curse, that ain't cheap. It's not easy. And most people who do them, like I've talked to a brujo before where I took a class with a brujo and he talked about curses and he was saying that even in Mexico, when people come to brujos or brujas and ask for a curse to be done, there are a lot of them who will tell them you need to sit and think about this because this is really serious stuff. So even at that, you will still get the practitioners who will seriously make that person sit with it and question it before they actually go through with it, depending on the situation. And I want to make it very clear here because I forgot to say it at the beginning. I am not against people doing justification work, justified work. I am not against that. There is a major difference. Do I think that there are ways to go about curses, hexes, and jinxes in a way that we are being discerning and we're asking ourselves if it's really justified? I think it's very important, and I think that is a key piece. But I'm not saying that I am against this kind of working. I want to make that very, very clear. I'm not one of those love and light girlies where it's all posy energy because we know that's BS. Or at least I hope I definitely fall in that category. Maybe you don't. Who knows? But point is, getting back to kind of what I was talking about, you have to know somebody who can do it. And even that, they're going to question you. And it's going to cost a lot, and it's going to cost a lot of energy, time, and money. or you have to be able to, the person themselves has to be able to do it. So unless you piss off a witch practitioner, you don't really have anything to be worried about. That's the point I'm trying to make here. You don't have to worry about this. And then the other thing on top of that is even if you do know a witch or a practitioner of some kind, it's also really not great to assume that just because they're upset at you that they're going to curse or hex you. And good Lord, I hope, good goddess, I hope that an ethical witch will not immediately curse or hex or jinx somebody because of a slight. It can happen. But again, if someone were to curse you, that takes a lot of energy and time. So somebody has to be really, 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 really mad and really, 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 really intentional with it. The other thing is, most of the time, people who are in the public eye, they're going to get more of that kind of attention than someone who's not in the public eye. Because people in the public eye are getting a lot more of that spotlight, for better or worse. And so people will send and do things directed at them. And that's a different story. So if you're not someone in the public eye and you haven't completely pissed off a witch, I want to make it very clear that you really don't have anything to be worried about when it comes to curses. Now, with that being said, do I know a witch who has intentionally tried to curse me and I didn't do anything wrong? And I'm not saying that out of like ego or like, no, like she was unfortunately projecting onto a lot of people and I got caught up on that. Yes. So it can happen, especially if the person in question is really reactive. But again, unless you're engaging with a lot of like the witchy magical community and pissing somebody off, even on accident, it's not something you have to worry about. So I want to share my experience a little bit, not in full detail because it is personal and we respect people keeping things personal here, yes? So I want to share a little bit about this just because I want you to know it's not the end of the world. Essentially, I knew someone who was a practicing witch, who projected quite a lot onto me and some other folks in the vicinity who the other people weren't witches. It just so happened to be that we were in the same environment together. And this person, to be completely honest, was not mentally well. This person um, saw everyone as attacking her and against her, which was not true at all. And this is why I mean by she was unfortunately she was not mentally well. Um, and so she projected a lot. And so I had seen her do this with other people around her that she was very close to in our environment, where she was really, really close to somebody. And then she made a huge assumption and burned that bridge down and then completely cut that person off. And she'd move on to her next friend an acquaintance, do the same pattern, and then completely cut them off. And then when it came to me, again, I when I noticed that this pattern was happening, I tried to kind of pull away, but it was no good. So when it came to me, she had done magical working. And I know this for a fact because when it comes to being cursed, hexed, or jinxed, we can use our magical and psychic abilities and tools to diagnose it. And this is where I want to empower you. If you feel that you have something, even if it's as simple as the evil eye, even if it's as minor as a parasitic entity or some sort of bacteria energy that you've collected, you can diagnose it yourself. Now, again, like I said at the beginning, for like 10, 15 minutes, go to the mundane first, double check if there is anything that can be explained mundanely. If the answer is no, and you've done everything within your power to try to take care of it in a mundane way, then we move to let's see if we can diagnose this and see if this is what we actually think it is. So that's what I did in my situation. So there are many, many ways to diagnose. This honestly, this topic could be an entire class. Um, so I'm not going to get too deep into it, but there are many ways that you can diagnose whether you have specifically the evil eye. You can diagnose specifically if somebody psychically attacked you or sent you something or done magical workings against you. So it really depends on you, your preference, your practice, on how you want to do that. And of course, if you don't feel comfortable diagnosing yourself because maybe you're second guessing your own diagnosis, then yes, you can absolutely go to a psychic and ask them. Now, remember the beginning of this episode when I talked about the TikToker, they didn't do any of those precautionary steps. They immediately just jumped to going to a psychic to get the diagnosis of being cursed, right? But in reality, that's what we want to do. We want to be able to start with the mundane, work into a diagnosis, or talk to somebody else to see what they pick up, what they sense, what they are able to see. So I should add an asterisk in regards to the person at the beginning. Um, yes, the evil eye and different spiritual, energetic things can cause physical sensations in the body, but that doesn't always mean that that's what it is. So, really want to be clear about that. Just because we have these things happening in our physical body and physical sensations doesn't always mean it's just going to be the evil eye and nothing else. It's like, no, it could be anything. Again, anything mundane. And once we get to that point of moving beyond the mundane, that's where we get here. So again, just want to make that really clear. So that's what I had done in my situation. I had diagnosed myself. Once I diagnosed myself, I got very, very, very clear confirmation. And by the way, when we diagnose, we aren't just checking once. We're checking twice, three times, even more. We want, I would say not too much because then we can like end up doubting ourselves, but at least we want to be checking 2 to 3 times. We don't want to just do one diagnosis and be like, that's it. I know for a fact. This is the end all be all. You want to have 2 to 3 different tools that you can use to diagnose. So, again, I could teach a whole class on this, but this is not the time or place. But point is, you're going to kind of check and then double check. And then once you go, okay, I have the diagnosis, it is confirmed that I do have something that somebody sent me intentionally, then you move on and you move forward into the next step, which is usually cleansing, um, doing a cleanse of yourself, of your space, of um, different ways to do that, obviously. Psychic cleansing, energetic cleansing, physical cleansing, and removal of any kind of cords and things like that. These were all things I had to do in my scenario, in which it was very, very obvious and clear for multiple reasons. But again, I'm not going to get into the details because it's personal, because I had many very obvious factors that signified that this person had done this. So going through that process to completely remove and cleanse and expel and then protect. But again, I'm emphasizing that this was a witch who had a bone to pick with everybody, who had an issue with everybody. And I do hope that they got the help that they need. And especially as someone who's a therapist in training, thinking back on it, not to psychoanalyze this person, but I really hope that they got the help that they need, whatever that may be. And I hope that they're doing better. Because it was looking back, in the moment, I was very angry that they did this to me. But looking back, it was kind of sad to realize that they were burning all their bridges around them for no actual reason at all, other than they were a, and I say this word not in a therapeutic diagnosis, but in more of like a day-to-day how we use it. So this isn't a clinical term, but how I'm using it is not clinical, but they were paranoid. They were paranoid that everybody was against them, and they started acting out in that way. So I really hope that they did get whatever help they needed to kind of process that. So if you've noticed throughout my story, I talk about how I was able to question the mundane. I was able to diagnose. I was able to cleanse, remove, and protect. All of those things were in my power. And I'm not just saying that as somebody who is a psychic witch, but who's a professional psychic witch, but I also say this to you, dear listener, that you should not feel afraid of these things because you have the power to transmute, transform those things and take your power back and say, I'm not going to give in to this. Because one of the key things about curses, hexes, and jinxes, and anything of that nature, any kind of psychic attack, is that you have to give it power in order for it to work. You have to accept that or be willing to say, oh my gosh, I am susceptible to this in order for it to fully dominate. And what I mean by that, and this is not at all like a victim blame or like you're the problem. No. What I mean by that is that your power of belief in yourself is stronger. You believing in yourself is stronger. But if you believe in the negative, you're opening that door. And we don't want to do that. And that's okay to have that idea of like this is a possibility and it could happen. But in the moment of it, you want to say, you know what? It is a possibility. It may have actually happened, and I'm going to diagnose and I'm going to take my power back and I'm going to say, screw this. Send this back. Get rid of this. I'm not accepting this. It's very similar when I say that it's within our power and we don't want to open that door. It's very similar to how hypnosis works. So, from what I understand, for anybody who's not aware, hypnosis only works if you believe it to some extent. Not everybody can be hypnotized. Not everybody can be put under persuasion of hypnosis. Some people, it kind of works, not really, a little bit. And for some people, it works almost too well that it can really mess with somebody and traumatize them they've done incorrectly or poorly. This is the way that you should frame psychic attacks and magical attacks of this variety is that the more susceptible you are to it is the more that you are giving your power away in that sense. So the more that you can empower yourself to say, yeah, I believe this, but at the same time, I don't accept it. And I'm going to put my foot down and I believe in myself to get rid of this and remove this. And even if you're like, oh, I don't believe in myself to be able to get rid of this, but I believe this person can do it. It's the power of belief, is what I'm trying to get at. It is the power of your belief and where you're giving your energy and your power to that matters. If you believe more in the curse than you do, let's say, a higher power that can remove it, or even yourself, then which one's going to win out? The thing that you're feeding the energy to, right? So your power of belief is extremely important. So even if you don't fully believe in yourself to be able to do it, if you believe in a priestess, if you believe in a divine entity or an angel or anything of that nature, of this higher power, call upon that. Work with that. Your power of belief going towards that of, I know that I can get through this because I have the power of God and anime on my side. Sorry, that's an old meme. But the point is that if you're able to call upon your resources and call your power back to you, you can easily remove and get rid of that stuff. If there is even anything there. And again, the chances of a curse are extremely unlikely. And a hex is also unlikely. That's still pretty far up there. This is why I was saying like jinxes are a little more common. The day-to-day stuff, like the evil eye and things of that nature and projection and the energetic bacterial parasitic stuff. That's stuff that we're going to be dealing with, especially if we're sensitive and psychic and witchy. And that's fine, as long as we know that it is within our power to be able to change and alter those things. So that's the main thing that I really, really, really want you to take away from this episode is that you don't have to be so scared of these things. And I invite you to take time, if you're inspired by this episode, take time to sit and meditate and reflect on where do you feel you pull power from? What things make you feel empowered? And when I say powered and empowered, I mean what makes you feel protected? What makes you feel like you have a strong defense? What makes you feel like you can overcome anything? What can you call upon? Is there music that makes you feel powerful? Is there, like I said, a divine spirit or even just a spirit that you work with that makes you feel powerful? Ask yourself those questions, and that will help you to feel more protected and engaged in your defensive magic. Again, I could teach a whole class on this, and I do have a class on it. So if you're interested, check out my website. Um, but for now, that is the episode, my friends. I hope that you found this episode inspiring. I hope that it inspires you to go forward and find your inner power and know that you can take your power back and you do not have to be afraid of these things. And that hopefully you learn, that these things are not as common as the fear of it from Hollywood, from movies, from media. It's not as intense as it seems. So thank you all for being here for this episode. I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for joining me in the parlor for this episode. If you want more psychic magical tips, make sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Phantasma Witch. Phantasmawitch. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon, where I have a Discord community. I do Q&As, live classes, workshops, and more. To book a reading or consultation directly with me, you can go to my website, www.phantasmawitch.com. All of these links can be found in the episode description. And please, if you enjoyed this show, make sure you go leave a rating, leave a review, share it with others. It really helps the show to reach new listeners if you take a moment to do that, and it is sincerely appreciated. Shout out to the artist Cat Lines, who helped me to redesign the podcast logo to the beautiful magical teacup you see today. See you, mystical friends, in the parlor next time.